Pour the rest of it down.
Pour the rest, okay.
It sounds so lame when there's not a glug
Yeah,
glug.
there's no glug
I'm
glug.
like, man, this is the lamest bottle of wine ever. You're listening to The Tales We Tell, a podcast about spooky stories, unsolved mysteries, and local lore. I'm your host, Hannah Parch.
And I'm Katy.
Welcome back. Oh man, we're all falling apart right now, but it's fine.
My throat is killing me from. I think it's just drainage.
Oh yeah,
because sinuses and just been an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, and my shoulder is killing me for whatever reason. You want a muscle relaxer? Ow.
Honestly, yeah, because I'm always in pain. I'm also sore from all the painting. I've got officially 2 walls done.
Nice.
And moved both of the super heavy discs. So the next wall is like taped and prepped and ready to go. So tomorrow morning I'm going to do like 1 coat, go start doing some packing, do a 2nd coat, and do some more packing.
Nice.
And then probably have to do a 3rd coat because that white, like that white does not cover that yellow well enough.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. Yellow's bright.
And then the blue covers the green fairly well, but I still felt the need for a 3rd coat on all of the blue.
Okay.
And I don't love the blue.
Oh.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that like once it's all done,
yeah,
and everything's like put back in order and there's things hanging on the wall that it'll look better.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't look bad. It's just I would like it a little bit darker, but I was worried about going too dark with that kind of dark, moody, very, wow wallpaper. So,
you know me, I love dark.
But it would have been like the wrong kind of dark.
Oh yeah, true.
So.
Well, you've motivated me so much. Every time I'm in my bathroom now, I'm like, I can't wait to paint this, even though I know it's going to be a pain.
Up to your door, I realized that I forgot to bring the paint that I was going to give you.
It's okay. There's a whole bunch of stuff I gotta do before painting. And I'm already like, I don't know, whatever. I need to not put myself into another project right this second. Yeah. Oh, man.
I was already like, while I was waiting for some of the paint to dry today, I was waiting, for the 2nd coat to dry before I put the 3rd. I was sitting in my chair in there looking on Pinterest of the best ways to paint upholstery because I want to paint one of the chairs downstairs in the living room. And I'm like, finish this project first.
Yep, finish that.
Then do that one.
Is it cloth?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was going to say, if you're painting leather, I have a really great paint to recommend. I'd have to look it up, though, because, again, it's a TikToker that I follow. I don't know what I'm going to do when they ban TikTok. I'm, like, not going to have access to any of them.
Go back to Reels like the rest of us.
I know. I'm like, I got to start following these people on Instagram so that I don't lose my motivators.
Didn't they threaten to like block TikTok before? Like a couple of years ago, they're like, oh yeah, at midnight tomorrow, and like no more TikTok.
Yeah. And now last I heard, which I heard this from a TikTok, so who knows, it was they like have snuck the ban into like another bill that has to do with foreign aid. And but as far as I heard, isn't it still like just a threat, like you have to sell the company or we're gonna ban you?
I don't know all the details, mostly because I don't care about TikTok.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I will be fine without it. It's like a store. It's like Facebook, where I'm like, I'd be fine without, like, if I didn't have my Facebook. But I'm like, that's where I keep a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I think the people who it like really impacts are some of the creators.
Yeah, like the influencers who make money off of it.
I mean, well, no, influencers who are like hawking products.
Oh, yeah.
They can do that on Instagram still just fine. But I think there's like a creator fund kind of a thing. So, people who put out content that, garners a certain amount of viewership can earn actual, money from that, some actual proceeds. But I feel like also those people are pre-existing, like they're already creators elsewhere. Like, they're already YouTubers.
Yeah.
And I think, or they might have other platforms or something, and this is just another revenue source for them. And I don't think it's a really, it's certainly no one's making a windfall on TikTok. But
and I think a lot of them, at least what I've seen, is like they'll say like, go ahead and follow my Instagram, like and so what I think is that they're putting the same content on Instagram as TikTok, which honestly I should just follow everyone on Instagram, but I don't know. Okay, ready? All right. Well, you know the name of our subject today because I made Google Translate it or pronounce it for me.
I was expecting it, and it still kind of surprised me. Like, I knew you were looking up the pronunciation, but I was reading, and all of a sudden there's this like Latino sounding man.
Well, this is
saying someone's name,
a German name, so I don't know why he pronounced it Juliane, because I don't think that's
it sounded either Spanish or Italian.
Well, hopefully he got the last name correct. So we're talking about Juliane Koepcke, I think is how we Koepcke. Okay. And I'll go ahead and say this story is just one of those, like, this is just a wild story.
All right.
It's not real. There's some unsolved aspects to it.
Just a little wackadoodle.
This is just a story that I heard on Stuff You Should Know. Mm-hmm. They did a short stuff on it, so it was like a little 10-minute episode, and I was like, there has to be more to this. So
there it is.
There is. She wrote a book. Okay. If you want, your first picture is of Juliane and her parents. So Juliane, what do we say? Koepcke was born on...
Like Kafka, but...
with a P. Okay. PK.
She's cute.
Koepcke. I know. Very German. So she was born October 10th, 1954, to parents Hans Wilhelm Koepcke, and Maria Mikulutz Radecki. So Hans Wilhelm and Maria, henceforth known as her mom and dad.
Yeah.
So they were both zoologists. Her father was a professor, and her mother was one of the leading ornithologists.
Hence why little Juliane is here with some sort of bird.
With a Boyd.
Boyds.
A Boyd.
He keeps Boyds.
Yeah. So her parents met in Germany while they were both pursuing their doctorates. And when Hans got his doctorate, he was like, Germany is boring. I want to go somewhere that's very biodiverse. So he picked South America.
Okay.
And it was the 40s. And so he just, I guess, called or sent letters out to a bunch of places and was like, could you use a zoologist? And eventually he got a job offer in Peru.
I feel like that's a good place for zoology, but also for birds, too.
Lots of birds, yeah. And by this point, him and Maria were already engaged. Or no, they weren't engaged. But she was like, I'm going with him. And her parents were like, no, you shouldn't. And then they got engaged. And she's like, whatever, I'm going with him. But she was still in school.
But so Daddy, I love him. I'm having his baby. No, I'm
not. So he goes on this, like, he's like, I'm just going to go to South America by myself for now. It is, mind you, the late 1940s. Mm-hmm. He is a German national. Mm-hmm. They were not allowed to have passports at that time. So I'm going to give you a brief summary of how he got to South America. Okay, so he hiked through the Andes.
Did he use a lot of balloons and float a house there?
That would have been so much easier than what he actually did.
I mean, that's how Carl got there. For anyone who's confused, I'm referencing the movie Up.
Yes, the only storyline that has a house attached to balloons.
Not everyone knows that. I don't think my dad knows that.
That's true.
It's a good movie, Dad. You would enjoy it. They got Boyds in that one, too.
There's Boyds there, too.
Kevin's a girl. Which is really funny. I actually saw that movie with several friends, including one of my friends, Kevin. Uh-huh. And so, like, that became the funny joke. Like, haha, Kevin's a girl. Like, we're not actually making fun of you.
Yeah.
We just think it's funny. Like it's not funny because you're gay. We're not trying to, like, like, you're a dude.
It would have been funny, ironic if Kevin turned out to be trans.
And that's what now I'm like, I feel like it turns out, so he had 2 older siblings. And he's got an older sister and an older brother. And these are all people I knew from church. And they're all gay.
Nice.
And it's hilarious.
Love that. I love a gay family.
It's like, so, like, homosexuality is hereditary?
Listen, according to that show that Cara Delevingne did, maybe. Could be.
I don't know how.
It's... You have to watch the episode. I don't know. A scientist explained it. Okay. So, he hikes through the Andes. He gets a passport from the Vatican. It's like a Red Cross passport.
Is he just doing a solo trip now and Maria's coming later?
Yeah, she's finishing up her doctorate.
Okay.
Also,
she's going down to get established.
Yes. And I don't know why she doesn't have any trouble seemingly getting to South America.
Because she's a woman, maybe?
I don't know.
I mean,
so he gets a
maybe
passport.
She just went late enough.
That's what I'm thinking, yeah. Because this spoiler, this takes him year and a half. So he's got the passport, but then he's arrested by the Italians, and they put him in a prison camp. Because they're like, we're suspicious of you. I don't know. All right, so he's in a prison camp. He escapes from said prison camp, but, like, kind of by accident. Like, a storm comes and knocks a wall down. And he's just like, well,
that's my cue.
Yeah, he's like, if the wall isn't there, I guess I can leave.
Walk right
out.
It's a happy little accident.
While he is making his escape from the area, he meets a bird hunter who pretends to befriend him, but turns out was going to double cross him. So he's got to escape from that.
See, can't trust birds, and you can't trust bird people.
Yeah, except his wife, who's the love of his life, is a bird person.
I mean, I know there's an exception to every rule.
Maria's pretty cool.
But in general, like, every orchard has a few bad apples, right?
Yeah. This is the opposite of that. The bad apples are the
bird people.
The good
but there's a few good eggs in there.
Oh, man.
A few good eggs in that orchard.
Bird eggs. What other... I was going to say what other kind of eggs. I'm an idiot. Reptiles. Anyways, he gets out of the situation, and then he walks to Spain, where he stows away on a salt ship for 4 days, literally buried in salt, because he can't find any, like there aren't any ships that are going to South America, or he keeps, like, missing them by, like, a day. So he gets on this salt ship, buries himself in salt, and then after day 4...
Is he a mummy? Like, is he completely desiccated?
The reason that he only lasted 4 days, it was him and another guy, and the other guy was like, I'm so fucking dehydrated. I have to get out of this, and we have to tell them that we're here. So they do, and they get arrested and detained in the Canary Islands. And then finally... This is a bird-heavy episode. Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Clearly. You shouldn't have put it in my dog CA. You should have just put it in the other folder and drew a bird on it.
Well, spoiler alert, your only other picture in there is of a bird. An exotic bird. Which is just for funsies. It's just a fun fact. Okay, so from the Canary Islands, he finally finds a ship going to Brazil and gets on that. However, Brazil is on the opposite side of the continent. So he just walked from the coast of Brazil to the Peruvian border, which is anywhere between 1,700 and 2,600 miles. He just casually walks it. And then once he gets
Forrest Gump.
I know. Like, I don't know. And once he gets to the border, somehow he finds a plane and flies the rest of the way to...
He also... I'm sure he walked, but he also probably hitchhiked a good bit of it, I would imagine, right?
I don't know. He
might have just hopped on passing trucks.
I think it was pretty minimal, the hitchhiking, because he was, like, walking through, like, rainforest and...
Oh, dang.
I don't know. Lima is what I was thinking of. He flies to Lima.
I've also been to Lima. So I was about to say, I'm like, man, this sounds like it's almost as exciting as my trip to South America.
Yay.
Which was, we flew from Miami. Oh, gosh, now I can't remember all the details. Basically, we flew down to Peru for a little, like, quick stop, and then to Uruguay. But all I remember for sure now, because it's so long ago, was we were flying, and then we started turning.
Oh, no.
And we're like, we shouldn't be turning this direction. Huh, this is interesting. And then they came on with an announcement shortly thereafter that we had to make an emergency landing.
Why?
For a passenger.
Oh.
And so we stopped at the airport. This might have actually been at the Lima airport. I can't remember now all the details now, but we did have to like kind of turn around and go back and make an emergency landing.
Right.
To get, you know, a passenger to the hospital. And I was, you know, we were kind of in like the back section of the plane, and so I went back to use the restroom, and when I was coming out and going back to my seat, this was after we had landed and they were like getting things set up. They half carried this person. I think he had this stroke based on how he was like semi-walking.
Yeah. But
mostly being like carried, and like his feet were kind of dragging, and his face just looked kind of drooped. And yeah. So, and then they had him sat back there. And I'm like, I'm not going to like stare and ogle. I'm going to give this person some dignity and privacy. And I'm going to go back to my seat. But it was really weird because they had the back door open and they had like a stair car so they could get him down. And we watched them load the patient up in the ambulance, and because they had a ambulance drive out on the tarmac and meet us. And they're like, while we're here, we're going to go ahead and refuel. And so they had the back door still open.
Yeah. And
it was weird. And like, you know, I could kind of go right up and stand on the edge and look. Planes are a lot taller than you realize.
Yeah, they are pretty tall.
And I was like, that is a long way down. I'm not going to get closer.
Well, I want to let everyone know that Katy does not know what's going to happen in the story, and her stories come completely organically, regardless of how appropriate they are for the episode.
Nice.
I'm like, this is going to sound like we planned that story, but we didn't.
No, it's always a surprise.
I know. So fun fact, when her dad, that's what we're calling him, when Julianne's dad gets to Lima, the job offer, they were like, that was like 2 years ago. That job is no longer available. So, anyways, he finds something else to do. Maria joins him easily, apparently, and they get married in Peru. And they founded something called the Humboldt House in Miraflores. Okay. And it's essentially like almost like a boarding house, but it was for scientists who were traveling and like coming through Peru or staying in Peru to do research.
The name Humboldt sounds really familiar. It's something I should know, but I feel like there's a couple of different Humboldt things.
Yeah.
And that's why I can't figure out which one sounds familiar. Anyway.
It seems cool. So Julianne obviously is born, and she grew up in Miraflores. She grew up speaking both German and Spanish.
See, and
smarty.
Also, her parents running basically that more or less like boarding house for scientists would be an epic place for a kid to grow up, to get to meet all these different people from different places who are there studying different things. And, you know, like, scientists are very passionate people. We love to share our passions and talk about them. And, like, oh my gosh, it would just be so cool.
She's got a very cool childhood.
I mean, just to have such an eclectic, you know, background of like, oh, well, you know, I was talking to, you know,
Johan.
Johan was here for like 6 months and he was a mycologist, and now I'm talking to a primatologist, and then we have now a physicist here. Like all of the ists, the ologists, and
don't worry, her childhood gets cooler.
I bet it does. I bet it does.
But before
I'm jealous. So yeah,
I was gonna say
bilingual.
Yes, bilingual. Shortly after her birth, like I don't know, 1955, and she was born in 54, so I think it was less than a year. Her parents went on a research trip without her, obviously, but they had like a freak accident while they were out there. They both lived, but her father broke his collarbone and a rib and got a concussion, and her mom had a skull fracture, which left her with chronic headaches, complete loss of smell, and partial loss of taste.
Oh, that sucks.
I know.
Partial loss of taste is probably also related to the loss of smell.
Yeah, probably. But that, like, obviously didn't stop them from doing stuff. And they would when Juliane was old enough, they would take her, like, on their excursions. She became really familiar with the rainforest and with, like, the animals that were native to Peru. They had a bunch of exotic and non-exotic pets. And I'm just going to list them just for fun. This has no bearing on the story. So they had a lizard who she named Crocodecton, which roughly translated to, according to her, Croco-Lizzie. She was like, it was like the German words for crocodile and lizard, and I just smashed them together. It's like, love that.
All right.
They had a couple, Tinamu, I think is how we're saying. That's the bird that she's petting in that picture. They had a parrot named Tobias.
Love it.
Who was toilet trained and also survived/was revived from a heart attack.
Okay.
Like, amazing bird. And then he later died of pneumonia, sadly. Which I didn't know birds could get pneumonia, but Tobias did. And then they also had a German Shepherd mix named Lobo.
No.
He lived to be 18 years old.
That's old for a big doggo.
I know.
Especially German Shepherds, who often have, like, hip dysplasia and or just hip problems.
Well, I'm hoping because they said a German Shepherd mix, maybe he mixed
a little better off.
Yeah, because my parents' old dog, Penny, she was a German Shepherd Golden Retriever mix, but also apparently had, like, Jack Russell in her. So she didn't get super big, and she was 16 before she died. So...
Both my past two dogs, I had one, we had to say goodbye a month before her 16th birthday. And then my other dog was about 6 months from her 16th birthday. And they were both big dogs.
Wow. That's awesome. That gives me hope.
I mean, you take care of your animals.
I know. Like, well, Kelly has to live forever, so. In 1968, when Juliane was 14... they moved to the rainforest.
What's your address? The rainforest.
The rainforest. And I actually tried to look up. I was like, I don't know how to explain where. So the place that they settled in was called Penguana, but they named it that. So
they literally just kind of moved to the middle of the jungle and said, okay, this is where we're going to build a home.
Yes, but they didn't really build a home. So
they just kind of lived in like like what the people on Naked and Afraid build.
Yeah.
Because
yes,
Shelton and I like Alone. Like, if he's watching Alone, I'll watch that one with him. But if he's got Naked and Afraid on, I'm just like,
I can't do that one.
I'm not that interested in it. But they did like the Naked and Afraid XL or whatever, where it was like extreme.
XL?
It was like extreme whatever.
And they were rename that. And
they were in the Amazon, and people were dropping like biting flies.
Oh, jeez.
And so it was like they would start out in teams of 3, and then like there was a couple of people that it was just down to that one person.
Yeah. And
then some other people were like, well, this place is kind of like dried up on resources. We're gonna migrate, and they're like, meet up on like, hey, new teams. But anyway, any of the temporary structures that they build, that's what now I'm envisioning when you said they did not build a home.
Yes. Well, they lived in a native hut that was already there. And Juliane said that it started out with no walls. So I assume maybe they put in some walls later, but it was not like from what I could tell, it was not like a cabin in the forest or something.
just keep thinking about, like, but privacy. What about parents' important alone time?
That's, yeah. I mean,
do you just wait till she's asleep?
Well, she said that she, like, immediately became a jungle child.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine maybe they were just like, Julianne's out in the rainforest.
Let's do this. We got time. Let's go.
Yeah.
Little Mowgli.
Yes, that's who she was, but German and blonde. She's really the most German-looking kid, y'all. Penguana was also the name of the research station that they established there, and it's still the name of, like, I think the forest. I'm not really sure. Anyways, so like I said, she adapted, like, perfectly to jungle life. Literally, she's living my nightmare, and it's like a dream for her.
All day, every day.
She's like, had to avoid venomous snakes all the time and, like, enormous bugs. And
if it weren't for, like, the mosquitoes or biting flies, like, if they weren't as attracted to me as they are, I'd be chill. I could handle it.
I hate the outdoors. I don't hate it, but we sat outside the other night at the campfire outside in our backyard. I say the other night, I mean Saturday, because it was when Luke was here. I was out there for maybe 30 minutes. I got like 17 freaking bug bites on me, and they still itch. Like, my mosquito bites itch for like a week. And they're all on my feet and ankles. I'm just, oh, jeez. Okay. Sorry. This is also about the jungle. Okay, so they would go, the whole family would get up at 6 a.m. to go observe the Boyds.
What else is there to do in the jungle?
Exactly. But this is where Juliane learned, like, how to navigate, like, the vegetation. She learned how to, like, cut paths and how to orient herself. She learned how to scratch markings into trees to, like, find her way back. And then in March of 1970, she had to return to Lima to finish school, which she was kind of bummed about.
I believe it.
But then she was also like, oh, but then I get to be around my friends and, like, be a normal teenager. So she was very
like,
easily...
oh, right. Boys exist.
Yeah. She was like...
This ain't half bad after all.
Yeah. She was like, milkshakes and going to the movies and dancing with boys.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with liking the jungle, but also liking normal teenage girl things. Like, you can be both.
You can be both.
You can be
no
both.
Los dos. So she had been, like, obviously continuing her schoolwork in the rainforest, but the school board was like, you have to go to some in-person school before we're going to let you sit for exams. So she did that. She returned. Her parents stayed in the rainforest and probably caught up on their mom and dad time.
Well, I mean, also they're like, well, if she wanders around the jungle on her own just fine. Like, she can probably handle the city for a little bit. Yeah,
she can hang out in Lima for a year with family friends.
I was about to say, she's probably staying with...
Yeah, she's staying with some friends. And she's not just, like, running the Humboldt house by herself. So at the end of 1971, she graduated from the equivalent of high school. But apparently there was, like, I don't know, something else she had to do before she could take, like, university entrance exams. So she was planning on doing that.
It's so funny that she's like right in between my mom and my dad. My dad was born in 1951. Sorry to blast your old age there, Dad.
Yeah. My dad was born in 1953.
But I've got my mom's old high school yearbook. It's one of the many things of junk that I've gone to go through in this room that I'm repainting. But it's the 1974 Farragut Admirals yearbook.
So her mom had flown into Lima that November for, I don't know, bird stuff, I guess. And they were planning to return to Penguana together for Christmas.
So, I mean, you said it was already a established hut. Is there, like a tribe? Like, is there a community that's already living there, like, with other people? Just maybe, like, a small...
I think there's, like, a
tribe?
Nearby...
not
like,
necessarily
village
town,
or... Yeah.
but
because she talked about, like, they weren't completely isolated.
Right.
But I think the village was, like, you know, a good long hike. So it wasn't like they
kind
had
of like
neighbors.
Homesteading on the prairie.
Yeah.
And your closest neighbor was like 2 miles away.
Yeah. And so I think there was like a village where it was more of an established community.
Okay.
And they were just more intentionally like
isolated
in the forest. Yeah. So her mom had suggested that they fly out, I guess like mid-December or earlier December. But Juliane wanted to attend her Fiesta de Promoción. Graduation dance. And that was happening on the 23rd. And so she was like, Mom, I really want to go to this. And her mom was like, sure, whatever.
Absolutely.
So they were like, we are going to fly out on Christmas Eve of 1971. So they tried to book a flight with the Fawcett airline, but all of those flights were booked. And the only alternative was an airline known as LANSA, which is an acronym for something, but it spells LANSA. LANSA Airlines was founded in 1963. In April of 1966, LANSA Flight 501 crashed into a mountain shortly after takeoff. It killed all 49 passengers and crew. And a year before Juliane's flight, which was, sorry, I thought I got that flight number wrong. I might have. A year before Juliane's flight, in August of 1970, LANSA Flight 502 crashed after an engine failure. 99 of the 100 passengers and crew on board were killed. 49 of those were students from an American exchange program, which is just, I guess, extra tragic that they were young. Juliane and her mom were booked on LANSA Flight 503. So 502 had just crashed. This is 503. And it was the last remaining aircraft that LANSA had in operation, which they didn't know at the time. They knew that the airline was, like, sketchy. And her dad had actually...
kind of like Spirit Airlines.
Yeah. Her dad had actually said, like, don't fly on that airline. But it was the only flight available, and they really wanted to get home for Christmas. So the plane was a turboprop, which was apparently designed for use in desert regions. And the wings, quote, were fastened firmly to the fuselage, which is apparently a bad thing because it means that it performs really poorly in high turbulence, which I guess makes sense if it's like stiff and doesn't have any give. I don't know. Also, this particular plane had been assembled entirely from spare parts of other planes.
Well, okay, I'm not going to knock that because my great uncle has actually done that. So,
did he put people on it?
I've been on it.
But did he put like 100?
Am I not a real people? No, it was a small like 2-person prop plane. So he actually has won this award. I feel like I've mentioned this before, but he won this very like rare award because he it was for 50 years of service as a pilot. Okay. As well as 50 years of service as a mechanic. Ooh. And so cool. I'm not talking like commercial pilot. Yeah. But I'm sure like this award will cover like any type of anyone who is a pilot, but like most people are one or the other. Like most people are like I'm a mechanic, I like to work on the planes. Right. Or I'm the pilot, I like to fly the planes. Right. You know, like I can do a little bit of fixing here and there when needed, but any kind of big thing, no. Yeah. And he was both. Not a lot of people do both. So he got, a special award and recognition for it. But he's had so many planes that he's bought. Some work great right out of the gate. Yeah. And might fly those for a few years, and then he'll sell them, and then buy a different one. He bought one. One of my favorite ones was it flew during like it wasn't. I don't think it flew in the war, but it was a plane that was flying like during like the last 6 months of World War II. Okay. And then had been in a hangar just collecting dust for years and years and years until he bought it and restored it. Nice. and that was a fun plane to fly in. But there was another one that he had literally just bought parts and, pieces and put it together and made a plane.
Nice.
Okay, and flew that one for a few years and then sold it.
Well, then we won't knock that part of it, but this plane apparently was like just...
No, I won't. Don't knock it for like a small 2-person plane. Like is a hobbyist, but like also a professional mechanic.
Yes. And also didn't have a history of...
And is not selling tickets. It's not an airline.
Didn't previously kill 100.
As far as I know, he's never had any accidents.
So. Good. That's great.
As far as I know, no plane crashes.
Well, Juliane and her mother sat in row 19, which was the second to the last. And this was like a packed flight. It was like...
Because it's Christmas Eve.
Yeah, and like since other flights had been canceled, there were like people who were like jockeying to get on this flight. So they are sitting in the back. Juliane had the window seat, and her mom had the middle seat, and then there was a stranger on the aisle. Her mom actually hated flying. She called it unnatural. She's like, birds fly.
I was about to say, she's a bird person.
She's like, birds.
If she doesn't want to fly.
She's like, we aren't. I think she was like, something this big and like
we're
hunky and metal shouldn't be flying. Birds should be flying.
Birds are graceful, right?
Yeah.
These things are
not.
Especially if they're not just when they're just crashing into the sides of mountains.
Exactly.
But, okay. Again, to reference my South American flight, at one point the pilot came on. They're like, "Okay, if you look out your window on the left side, you'll see the Andes." And I was like, and so, we go look out the window, and anytime we've been flying anywhere before, and you look out the window, you're like, oh, look, some mountains over there, but you're looking down.
Down on them, yeah, because you're supposed to be high in the air.
I mean, you are high in the air.
I know.
So we looked out the window, and we still have to look up to see the mountain peaks.
No, thank
We're
you.
like, oh, look at all the snow on the mountains. Like, there's some down there.
Goodbye.
There's some at our level.
Oh, God.
And there's still some high. And we're like, and they were right there. Like, we were in the mountains.
No,
and I was like,
never.
There was a pretty famous plane crash in these mountains.
There's been a couple.
And, I'm naming the number one most famous one. Yes. We've actually been to that museum in South America.
Nice.
One of the things we did when we were in Uruguay. Was go to the museum. We're like, oh.
You're like, I can see how planes run into these mountains.
Yeah, no, 100% we were at the museum like, yeah, no, I totally see how this plane crash happened. 100%.
Jeez. No, thank you. Well, and they're essentially doing that. They're flying over/through the Andes. So her mom had a couple scares while flying in the past, and her mom flew all the time for like work. She actually had a friend who like never flew anywhere. He was like just
feet on the ground.
I will drive or take a boat. Like, I don't care how long it takes. And then the first ever time he decided to fly, the plane crashed. So she's like, has good reason not to trust planes. So their flight from Lima to Pucallpa, I think. It's about 100 miles north of Pinguana. So this flight was only scheduled to take about an hour. After about half an hour, the plane encountered a storm. And for whatever reason, the pilot is like, we're just going to fly through this storm, straight through it.
Not an ideal.
Not ideal. And in Juliane's words, quote, "It turns to night around us in broad daylight." So, like, everything goes dark. The plane suddenly begins to shake really violently, and Juliane can see lightning outside the window. And then suddenly, lightning strikes the right wing of the plane. And Juliane describes losing all sense of time at this moment. She remembered hearing her mother very calmly say, "Now it's all over." And then the plane begins to nosedive. And suddenly, Juliane is no longer hearing the roaring of the plane or the screams of all the people around her. And this is a quote from her. "My mother is no longer at my side, and I'm no longer in the airplane. I'm still strapped into my seat, but I'm alone. Alone, at an altitude of about 10,000 feet. I'm alone, and I'm falling. So, the plane had broken up, essentially, and Juliane had been sucked out of the plane, still strapped to her seat, and was free falling 10,000 feet, which is about 2 miles. I guess maybe should have warned if anyone has like a really severe fear of flying. Maybe don't listen to this one.
It's so funny how I used to be like super. I've always been pretty chill with flying, but I feel like the older I've gotten, like every time, like the last couple times that Shelton and I have flown anywhere, which has been a long time. Mm-hmm. Thank you, COVID, you dick. I'm always like I have that urge of like, hey Shelton, I love you.
Yeah.
Just
in case. Not to be morbid, but it's a good thing to tell. I mean, I don't know. This not a spoiler, I guess, but like good reminder to just like tell your loved ones that you love, like whenever they're going somewhere. Mm-hmm. Jarek went for a walk right before you got here, and then was gone for like an hour. And after like 30 minutes, I was like, "Hello, are you?" I texted him. I was like, "Are you alive? Did something happen on this like 10-minute walk?"
Oh, well, you know, like when my husband is coming home late from work, you know, which already he doesn't get off until 9 most nights. Late. And then, so it's like, okay, you know, it might be busy. He might be, you know, a little bit late. I'm like, okay, well, usually if he's going to be this late, he at least texts me, let me know, like, hey, I'm going to be late. And I'm like, all right, cool. That means I don't have to worry about you being dead in a ditch somewhere.
Yeah.
In like the 2-mile drive to
listen, it could happen
between our house, and then he comes home and I'm like, oh good, you're alive. I had just called him or something and he didn't answer too, which was like I was starting to freak out and he got like, irritated with me. I was like, okay.
Occasionally Jarek has started to come home without calling me, which is like abnormal to our routine. Like I call him as soon as I get in my car leaving work. He usually he does usually call me when he's on his way, and every now and then he'll just show up at the door and I'm like, oh god. I'm like, how am I supposed to establish something where if you go missing and I can tell the police? No, he calls me every day when he gets off work, except for sometimes when he randomly decides not to. Anyway, okay, so Juliane is free falling. She remembers the seatbelt squeezing her so tightly that she couldn't breathe. She remembered seeing the tops of the trees of the rainforest below looking like heads of broccoli. And she remembered it was completely quiet, except for the sound of the wind, obviously.
Yeah, wind whistling.
And, like, I was like, this just sounds exactly how, like, movies, I feel like, would describe, like, it's chaos, it's crazy, and then all of a sudden it's, like, that
eerie, quiet, peaceful almost. Yeah.
So she thinks she probably lost consciousness several times during this fall, which
makes sense.
And when she wakes up,
well, also physically, like the change in altitude probably had an impact on that.
I didn't even think of that.
And then physiologically, the fear, probably.
Yes.
Yep.
So when she wakes up, she is lying on the ground underneath her seat bench. I think she's unbuckled, and she's covered in mud. And she's obviously, like, concussed, and just, like, exhausted, whatever. So she stays there for the rest of the day, and then all through that first night. And when she wakes up again, it's Christmas Day, and she says immediately she realized, like, what had happened. That she had been in a plane crash, and that she was now completely alone in the jungle.
Sounds like her brain was more or less protecting her.
Absolutely, her brain protected her.
It's so cool how your brain can do that. Will protect you. Like, hold on, you are not. It's like, I need the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Yeah, her brain
it's was. Like, you rest.
You rest.
Kind of recover physically. Like, make sure, you know, nothing's too hurt. And then we'll deal with reality.
Yes.
Okay. Take a nice little nap now.
Take a nap.
Get your strength up.
So her left eye is completely swollen shut. her glasses are missing. She wears glasses, and so she can't see very well. She has a severe concussion. Her collarbone is broken, although she says she does not feel any pain from that. Again, brain, thank you. She has a really deep 1.5-inch gash on her leg, but she says it's not bleeding. And she has a small but deep cut on the back of her arm. I don't think she's noticed that yet, because again, these injuries her body is not feeling pain.
Mm-hmm.
And she's wearing her watch, appropriate conversation at the beginning, and it still works. And it is 9 a.m. So a lot of people have speculated about how she survived falling 10,000 feet with like relatively few injuries, considering.
It sounds like, I mean, I guess she must have fallen through a really thick canopy.
Mm-hmm.
And if she fell seat down, that acts as like a
barrier.
A barrier for her. So if she continued, like, I'm sure that she probably got bounced around, but like, it slowed her fall, bounced her around.
Cushioned her fall
these
a little.
Gashes, like, that she probably got hit in the face with a branch, or another branch broke as she was falling, and that led to the cuts here and there.
So yes, that's absolutely part of it. They also think that maybe the storm had created like updrafts, because I guess that's common. And then they said the way she was strapped to the seat, it was like her and then two, like the seat, it was like a seat bench, but there's no one else on the seat bench. So they described it like one of those, I call them helicopters, the seeds that have like the one wing, that like kind of slowed her fall a little bit, so she's not like slamming into the earth. And she also said that she remembered not feeling any fear when she was falling, and she like kind of describes what people who had near-death experiences describe as just like time slows down, your body is like keeping you from being afraid, and you're just really calm.
It's like a weird peacefulness.
Yeah. Our brains are so cool. Like, amazed by them. So she spends the day, this first day, just calling out for other survivors, and looking specifically for her mother. And she doesn't like want to wander too far, because she doesn't want to, like, I mean, in theory, you're supposed to stay put and wait for someone to find you.
Yeah, but also, if you fell out of the plane, like, the plane was still moving.
The plane was still going.
So you went here, the plane could be way over there. Like, who knows how long the plane was able to stay in the air and how far it was able to travel.
Yeah. Well, eventually, she finds a small stream. And she remembers that her father had once told her that if she ever found herself lost in the jungle, she should find a water source and follow it, because it would eventually lead to people. So that's what she does. She follows this stream.
Does she go upstream or downstream?
I believe she's going upstream.
Okay.
That's following the current of the stream, right? Or no, is that downstream?
It's going against the current. If you go with the current...
She's going downstream then, sorry.
So she's headed to the coast, basically.
Yeah. So she follows it for several days, and this whole time she can hear search planes in the sky, but she's in the freaking jungle,
so she can't.
They can't see her, and she's like, I just have to. She's like, I know this.
I know I can't climb a tree. Collarbone's broken.
But she's like, I know this stream is eventually gonna like lead into more open water, and that's where I need to get so that I can make myself visible to a search plane, because I know people are looking for us.
Yeah.
So that's what she does.
Also, fresh water.
Yes. Yeah. And she
can clean her wounds and stay hydrated.
Yes. And this whole time she like isn't eating anything. She's just drinking water. And she said she knew it's probably like a combination of, her body's in shock, but she's like, the water was really muddy, and I'm sure that was like kind of filling her stomach. And I mean, she didn't say that she was having, I would imagine, just like horrible stomach problems. But she said she didn't feel hungry, but she was just like drinking this stream water all the time. She knows that it's safe to drink because she's a smart little jungle girl.
Also, like, it's probably not downstream. It's clearly not downstream of any like major factory or anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, if she's following it down, she knows like, okay, well, nothing died in it 2 miles up.
Yep.
So
it's good to go.
Safe here.
Yeah.
Also, dilution is the solution to pollution. It's not. It's just a fun thing to say, but realistically, no.
No. So on the third day of walking, she finds the first piece of wreckage from the plane, which was a blackened turbine. And she's still very convinced that there's other survivors, including possibly her mother.
I know that you are like, you're planning to reveal what happened, and I'm trying to be patient, but like, I really need to know.
Do you want me to tell you?
You're gonna tell him.
I am. I mean,
so
I'll
wait.
There are not any other survivors.
Okay.
I'm sorry. So on the fourth day, she hears a king vulture nearby because she knows how to identify birds by their wings. So she hears a king vulture and she's like, fuck me, I know what that means. I know
dead things.
Yeah, I know what vultures eat. So she like kind of wanders away from the stream a little bit, finds where the king vulture is, and there she finds another plane seat bench. And it's been embedded into the ground. She says about 3 feet. Like it hit the ground
hard.
Very hard. And there are 3 passengers still strapped into the seat, also buried 3 feet into the ground with only their legs visible. It sounds so horrible.
Oh, that is, yeah.
And since all she can see is their legs, she can tell that there's 2 men and a woman.
Yeah. So
she checks the woman's toes to see if they're her mom's. But the toenails are painted, and she's like, my mom doesn't paint her toenails, so I know they're not hers.
Also, wouldn't she be able to recognize the shoes, or maybe the shoes had fallen off?
I think maybe the shoes had fallen off.
I guess so.
And then afterwards,
but also, if she was on a 3-seater, it should just be 2 people.
Yeah, she said later, she was like, I realized, after I had done that, that it couldn't be her, because she was sitting next to me, and there was another man at the end.
People aren't switching seats.
Yeah, and I'm sure it was just like instinct. It's just like, I need to know if this is my mom. I need more
before like logic and reason really come into the picture. It's you see, there's a woman. Is it her?
Yeah, and I'm sure
her brain is like, find mom.
Yeah, I'm sure mostly it was like, I need to confirm that this isn't my mother.
Yeah.
Like, which it wasn't. So she keeps going. On day 5 or 6, she hears the call of a hoatzin bird. And that is the bird that I have pictured for you, because now it's time for our fun bird fact.
Let's break up the tragedy and horror.
I know.
With an ugly bird.
But the fun thing about it, you see the little baby at the bottom?
Mm-hmm.
They have claws on their wings. So if they fall out of their nest, they can literally use their like freaky arm claws and claw their way back up. They're like freaking dinosaurs.
All birds are.
I know all birds are dinosaurs. Anyway, Juliane knows that the hoatzin bird only nests near open stretches of water or large rivers. So she's like, I know there's some open water coming up. So she follows the sounds of the birds, and it brings her to the stream eventually widens into a river that is about 30 feet wide. But now she can't hear the search planes anymore. They've stopped searching.
Looking. Or they're not looking in the right place.
Yeah.
But most likely they stopped searching.
So obviously she gets this, like, overwhelming, like, I guess, grief or despair because she's like, I finally made it to where I can see the frickin' sky, and now the planes aren't here. Like, what's happening? But she's like, I'm just gonna follow the river. It's like, I just have to keep following this water.
Surely there's civilization somewhere.
Yes, exactly. So while she's walking, she's using a stick to check in front of her for stingrays, which are apparently a thing. Stingrays.
Oh, I guess, is she walking in the river?
Yeah, she's walking in the river. But she can't see, very well at all.
Okay, because I didn't realize she was walking in the river,
Yes.
but because I remember in one of my field courses, we would do the Stingray Shuffle.
Oh, gosh.
Do you remember the song Cupid Shuffle?
Uh-huh.
So we rewrote the words to that song called the Stingray Shuffle.
Okay.
Really, it was mostly that was the words. But basically, like when we were walking in the water, you don't just step. You literally just kind of, you just kind of drag your feet kind of a thing, but like little steps to shuffle to, so you don't step down onto a stingray and get a barb in your foot. And also it kind of like, it's kind of like when you're walking through like high, dense, like tall grass or whatever, it's good if you have a stick.
Yep.
To beat the grass just to let the snakes know that you're coming. It gives them a chance to get away.
Yes.
So same thing with the stingrays is,
yes,
you know, avoid stepping on them and alerting them that you're coming so they can get out of your way.
Yes. And I think eventually she finds out that the river she was on is called like Stingray River or something. Like something. There were definitely stingrays there. And I think she's walking in the river because it's just easier than trying to like traverse around all of the foliage and stuff. She's like, I'll just walk in the shallow part of the river. And eventually she's like, screw walking. I'm just gonna swim / float.
Yep.
That's how I knew she was going
Downstream.
Yes. So she does that. She knows that the only real predators in the water are going to be those small crocodiles that I forgot to write down. And then
like caimans?
Caimans, that's what it is. But she's like, those. She knows that those don't really attack humans.
Well, so she's bigger than them.
Yep.
Predators don't typically attack things that are bigger than them unless they're like threatened or like backed into a corner. So.
Yeah. And she also knows piranhas only feed in standing water, which I didn't know. I looked up piranhas briefly. They're still terrifying to me. I hate fish. To me, one of the more amazing things about this story is that she didn't get like necrotizing fasciitis because all of her open wounds are in the water.
That's because this is probably in a not heavily, like there's not a lot of industry around. Like she's been walking for days along a water source and not run into any civilization, any people, which means it's a pretty natural stream. Which means, like, yes, there is obviously still bacteria, but it's not, as polluted and not teeming with bacteria as many, if not all, of our rivers and streams are today.
Yes.
Because we are horrible stewards of the earth. But anyway, go on. Tell me a story.
So she's not getting necrotizing fasciitis, but her leg has swollen a lot.
Probably does have some sort of bacterial infection.
Yeah. She said it still didn't hurt, but she also now realizes that the wound on the back of her arm has become infested with maggots. Specifically botfly maggots. Yep. So she tries to pick them out with tweezers that she makes from her ring. She's got like a spiral ring on. But that does not work. So she's like, I guess the maggots are going to stay for now.
She can't like drown them by being in the water?
I guess not. She also is getting severely sunburnt because now she's on the river. She's not protected. She said she got like 2nd-degree sunburns, which I'm like, oh, I've been there. I don't know how you're like still moving.
Survival.
Yeah, because your brain has gone into overdrive. Like I said before, she hasn't eaten anything since the crash. Like she's just going.
Just keep going.
On the 10th day, she comes across a boat. And so she like swims to the boat. She follows a small beaten path that she sees from the boat to a shelter. No one's there, but it's a shelter. And there's gasoline there for the boat. So she pours gasoline on her maggot-infested
Okay, good.
wound.
I was going to... When you said there's gasoline for the boat, I was like, oh, no, put it on the maggots.
Yeah.
So I was right.
And she actually, she said that she knew to do this because one time Lobo, the dog, had gotten a botfly infestation. And her dad had said, well, alcohol kills them, but like regular alcohol is just going to like hurt like a motherfucker. But kerosene doesn't burn and will also kill them. Apparently gasoline will too. Yep. So, smart girl. I
I am prepped and ready for a botfly infestation.
She tried again to get the tweezers to get them out. She manages to pull 30 maggots that come to the surface out of her wound that she can't even see. And then she, like, no one's showing up. And the shelter has, like, a really hard floor. And she's like, I'm not sleeping on that. So she goes back to the riverbank so she can sleep on the sand. She takes a tarp with her, though. Wraps up in that, falls asleep. The following day, no one has still shown up. And she's like, I have to keep moving. Like, I can't just stay and wait here because I don't think anyone's going to be here. She will not take the boat because she said she didn't want to compromise someone else's life to save her own. She was like, whenever they come back, they're going to need the boat. And I was like, girl, you need the boat.
Noble.
Juliane, like, they're probably in better shape than you. Take the boat. Also, they maybe have a radio. Like, I don't know. Good for her.
Leave a note on the...
Leave a note in the sand on the tarp.
Or just, like, scratch something into the side of the shelter.
Yeah. So, she has decided she's going to keep moving. She's, like, sitting on the shelter floor. And she's like, I'm going to get up any minute now. I'm going to get up and start moving. And before she actually gets up, 3 men show up. They come out of the forest and just show up at the shelter. It is January 3rd. So, like, Christmas has come and gone. New Year's has come and gone.
Terrifying.
Okay, fun fact.
They probably think, like, oh my god, it's a river witch.
If you had wine left, you would have to take a drink. Take a drink. Yeah. Nice. Katie just took a drink from the bottle.
Classy.
So... The guy said that when he first saw her, he thought she was a river spirit because, first of all, she's a small white child in the middle of frickin' nowhere.
With super blonde hair, which is probably even blonder after being in the sun for days and days and days.
Also, later, like, as she is being brought back to civilization, she, like, scares a mother, like a child, and then a mother, whatever. And she's like, why is everyone freaking out? And he's like, oh yeah, your eyes are completely red right now. Meaning she had several subconjunctival hemorrhages in her eyes, which is just when your blood vessels burst in your eyes, you get like a bleed. This had happened to her entire, all the whites of her eyes, plus her irises had just turned blood red.
Did she have blue eyes or brown eyes?
Probably blue eyes. I don't know.
It's hard to tell in the black and white photos.
Yeah.
Because they look darker. But
I can't emphasize, guys, how blonde she is. She's like your kid.
I was about to say, so my child.
Yes. Yes. Imagine him with blood red eyes.
I would like to not imagine that because, he would look like small children are creepy. And, like, he does that 1,000-yard stare sometimes that I'm just like,
what are you looking at?
I love you, but being a little creepy. It's just a matter of time until he's, like, really, really talking and is like, oh, yeah, there was, the man in my room. I was talking to the girl over there. And you're like, nope.
I told you about Morgan's kid, Alice, when we were antiquing, and she kept talking about the monster. And then the monster wasn't in certain parts of this. I was like...
I need you to specify where this monster is.
I know. And where it is at the park, she said something about, like, a... was it a baby? I don't know. She saw something else at the park that wasn't there. And I was like, Morgan, talk to your daughter. She's seeing ghosts.
Well, until he turns creepy, he's still adorable because he has a little baby shark bath toy. And he was giving it hugs and kisses in the bath tonight.
Oh.
Like, big, mwah, and then hug it. It's like a hard plastic toy. It's like one of those little fidget things that has, like, it's a bunch of different sized, like, little, like, semicircle cup things. So it, like, wiggles. And it's like a fidget toy that's kind of popular, but now it's baby shark. And I'm like, he needs, like, an actual stuffed animal to just to snuggle and hug. So I think I might get him a shark baby.
I was gonna say, we can make that happen. Okay, so these men, after they realize that she's not, in fact, a river spirit, they feed her, which she's like, I couldn't even really eat that much. Her stomach is probably now like
Is
the size of a
shrunk,
walnut.
but also she's definitely got infection.
Oh yeah,
so like
for sure.
The appetite is probably
yes.
nil.
They give her some new clothes to wear. She's been wearing a mini dress this whole time. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's 1971,
and also in the southern hemisphere.
Yes,
so it's summer.
Yeah. They pick more maggots out of her arm, so they get 50 maggots in total. I can't.
Hey, she got 30 on her own.
She did. And then they tell her, because she's like, am I the last one to be rescued? Like, what's going on? And they're like, they haven't found the plane. Like, we know that the plane, no, they haven't found the plane. We don't know where the plane is.
She's like, see that river? Go that way.
Yeah.
You'll find 3 passengers, and a little further up, you'll find my chair.
Yes. But they also tell her that she's the first survivor to be found. And this is when she realizes that her mother...
She's like, I'm the first, I'm the only. Yeah. Because, like, not everyone can survive. This is 11 days now that she's been in the jungle.
Yep.
And, she was very lucky to have pretty minor injuries. Like, a couple of cuts and a broken collarbone. Like, it's way better than a broken leg or a broken arm or something. Yeah,
she could still move.
Yeah. And so if she, with the minor injuries and just being comfortable in the jungle environment and having that knowledge, she's a step above the average person.
Yeah.
So, yeah. 11 days in, and she's the first. She's the only.
Yeah. So she also finds out that the river she's on, which is the Rio Shibonya, is completely uninhabited. Like, absolutely pure luck that she stumbled upon someone who happened to be there. She was not going to find, like, a village or, like, a settlement.
She was going to make it all the way to the coast.
She was going to hit ocean before she hit people, exactly. So, the next morning, they take her to Ternavista, where her wounds are treated, and she's given an antibiotic.
Hopefully a strong one.
Yeah. They tried to give her penicillin, and she wouldn't let them, because she knew her dad was highly allergic to it, and she didn't know if she was too.
See, she's so smart.
I know. She's like the smartest person. Anyways, she gets some kind of antibiotic, and then a woman named Jerry Cobb offers to fly her to... Do you know who that is?
No.
Oh.
But I'm laughing at the fact that someone who had just survived a plane crash and spent a week and a half alone... They're probably not itching to get back on a plane anytime soon. Like, very nice of Miss Jerry. Okay, very nice of Jerry. But no thank you.
Yeah. She offers to fly her to Juliane Koepcke, just because she's like, you can get better medical care, you'll be more comfortable. Jerry Cobb was a member of the Mercury 13, which was the women's group of astronauts who unfortunately did not go into space. But she was like, I think she was the first woman ever to be like named an astronaut. She was like she was the Alan Shepard of women. Like, and she like was telling Juliane that as a way of being like, I'm the safest person you can be flying with. Yeah. I promise.
I won't be flying you into a storm.
Yeah, like, I promise I'm like the most qualified person. I promise you're gonna be safe. And Juliane was like,
thanks, no thanks.
I can't. I don't have the energy to say no. So, like, sure, put me on a plane and I will just make it.
Lightning doesn't strike twice, right?
Yeah. So she gets to Juliane Koepcke. There's more maggots removed from her wounds. Not just her arm. She's got them everywhere.
She probably has more wounds than she started out with, too. Yes, just traipsing through the jungle.
Yeah, she said they pulled like a huge splinter out of her foot she didn't even know was in there, and they put a 20-inch strip of gauze in her arm wound, which I just, because she was like, they didn't know how deep it was, and so they just like start stuffing iodine soaked gauze in there and then change it every day, which I was like, well, just cut the arm off. Like, I can't.
No way.
She's also reunited with her father, and her dad, when he had first been told of the plane crash, he said, he was like, there's no way that my wife and child were on that plane, because I told them specifically not to fly with Lanza, and my wife would not get on a plane with them. Like, they weren't in the crash. Like, it's fine. And then a couple days later,
he's like, where are they?
Yeah.
Why aren't they here yet?
And a couple days later, the radio, I think, announced a list of the passengers, and that's when he found out. Juliane also finds out, speaking of other injuries she didn't know that she had torn her ACL in the crash. And an orthopedist would tell her it was medically impossible that she had been walking on it for 11 days. She's like, well,
I've been swimming in it.
Yeah, swimming on it. Actually, a lot of it was swimming. Like, maybe a third of the days. What's a third?
I can't explain that to you. It's just something you know. It's like one of those inherent knowledges.
Like, take a pear and cut it into 3 pieces?
It's less than a half and more than a quarter.
Yes, this is true.
Yeah.
Now, Jarek, you have to leave that part in so people know what we're talking about. Okay, so
he knows what a third is. He's not an idiot.
I know.
Just want to clarify that. It's just, we all have our we used to call them blonde moments. When I was a kid. It was blonde moments. I haven't heard that phrase used in a long time.
I think now they're like brain farts or yeah. When I called him on my way home from work today, because he had today off, he was like, he sounded so defeated. He's like, I need your help. And I was like, okay, with what? He's like, for the life of me, I've been trying. I can't figure out how to get our couch cushion back on. So the long piece that goes on the chase part of the sectional, we had taken it off last night because Kelly threw up on it. And so we took the cover off and put it in the wash. And he, I guess, is trying to put it back on today. And because it's like an L shape, it's not like a regular cushion shape. He's like, I can't make it work.
Dude, I have been there.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's funny. People with ADHD can be some of the smartest and dumbest people all at the same time. It's like, oh, we can do super complex, like we can learn and master super complex and figure out things without any instruction in no time at all. But like super basic, simple things are confounding and frustrating, and either frustrate us to the point of like, and being angry and exploding and walking away, or just like, you win.
Yeah.
And like, just, well, like, the entire day is ruined because of that. Like, just the executive dysfunction thing is so debilitating.
Like the couch cushion that you're like, I know how it's supposed to work. In my head, it's very easy. You put the shape into the other shape and zip it up and it's fine. But it's like every time you try it, there's just something. And to be fair, when I got home, I had to rotate it a few times because I was like, I started and I was like, this doesn't seem right. Anyways, it took us both. We both got it on there.
Well, that's when you just start saying, how do? How do? Because that's Walker's thing. When he's trying to figure something out, he can't. How do?
Mama.
How do?
Mama, help.
How do?
Oh my gosh.
Sheldon's tried to make him say, how work? How does it work? How work? How do? I like how do better than how work. Like, how work makes more sense, sure, but like, how do?
Yeah.
Just
how
cute.
Do is very cute. God, he's so cute. So Juliane is able to describe where she had landed, and like, obviously now that she's alive, the search has started again.
Yeah, because now they
know.
They know, like, okay, we were in the right area.
Close, yeah. So she's able to like tell them, describe well enough where to go. And soon they start finding pieces of the plane. And on January 8th, the first 20 bodies are discovered. And on January 12th, Juliane's father identifies her mother's body. So her remains indicate that she had only died a few days, like, before she was found. And so there's a lot of evidence that a lot of people survived the fall and died while they were waiting. And they don't know if, like, her mom had just been too injured and couldn't, like, you know, go, like, do what Juliane was doing.
Right. I mean, there's probably some people that, like, they were alive but unconscious and just died because they wasted away in exposure and all that. Yeah.
They later determined that between 6 and 12 other passengers had survived the initial crash and died in the forest. And her father never was fully satisfied that the body he identified was actually Maria. Really heartbreaking, because he and Maria were, like, soulmates.
They were
like,
in-game.
She was his absolute everything in the whole world. And when he identified the body, the upper part of her skull was missing. And they couldn't really figure out why. And he was also like, but her body itself was in, like, remarkably good condition, which is how they figured out, like, she hasn't been in the jungle for 2.5, weeks. Like, that's not, we know what happens to bodies in the jungle, like, between insects and birds and mammals. Bodies don't stay bodies very long. So the body gets embalmed and sent back to Germany, and he's like, I want an autopsy. Like, I want, like, more information. I want to figure out, like, what happened. Yeah. But when they go to do the autopsy, they find out that the coffin that had arrived only had an incomplete skeleton in it. Like, just bones. And not...
That's not what they sent.
I know. And he, like... So, obviously, like, even if the body hadn't been embalmed, it's not going to, like, decompose that rapidly to just bones in that amount of time.
And incomplete bones at
and
that.
Like, and, like, they never find out why. Like, he tries... God bless him.
Where go?
We have no idea. Juliane said that she thinks, she does think that the remains that got sent to Germany were probably mostly her mom. But she thinks part of her is probably still back in Peru, because they buried the unidentified bodies, like, with a monument, essentially. And she's like, I think part of her's there, and there's not, and it was like the shoe that he identified as being hers was just kind of brought to him, and they said it was found near the body. He identifies her wedding ring, but no one can really say if this body was wearing it. Like, and then he doesn't get to keep it. They like send it to whoever for, like, investigation, and then he never gets it back.
That's not cool.
So heartbreaking. Like, God, her dad. And, like, she says too, like, he was never the same after.
Also, tell me this airline was dead after that.
Yeah, they lost their license and they are no longer an airline anymore.
Well, I mean, they lost their last plane.
Yeah, they have no more planes also.
So they're like, we're done.
We're gonna be finished with that. Juliane would say later in life that a lot of people expected that she would hate the rainforest and the jungle, like, after everything she'd been through, but she says she still loves it.
The rainforest didn't hurt her. Well, I mean, maggots.
A quote from her is, "It wasn't its fault that I landed in it." Yeah. Which I was like,
legit.
True.
Yeah.
She said it broke her fall.
Yeah. Yeah, it saved her life.
Protected her from the sun.
For a while.
And ultimately, it helped her find her way to safety. It was like, the birds helped her. The river helped her. Like, yeah, some bad things happen in the jungle.
She struggled.
Yeah, she struggled. But, like, the jungle is what saved her.
Bad things happen in your own home.
That's true. That is true.
I stubbed my toe just the other day. That was not pleasant, but it wasn't my house's fault.
I've pulled some weird muscle in my body that I can't identify, and it's not the gym's fault, maybe. I don't know.
Bad things, unfortunate things, like little, things that don't go your way happen all the time. It's not that environment's fault. Like, no, I wouldn't hate the rainforest at all after that, honestly.
I might just hate it the same amount that I hate it now.
That would be fair to you.
Fair. Yeah.
But like
to me. Like,
I mean, again, like her having that knowledge and experience in that setting, really set her up for success for survival.
Yeah. And
so.
she went back with her dad to God, I'm gonna forget how to say it, Penguana. Like he goes because that's where he's living. So she goes back and stays with him for a little bit, and then he's like, "You need to go back to Germany." And she was like,
Has she ever been to Germany?
I think maybe she's been a few times because her like her grandparents.
Well, because I was gonna ask too, like when he sent the body back to Germany, I was like, well, that's weird. I guess she still has a relationship with her parents.
Yes.
'Cause you mentioned that they were like, no, don't marry this man.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'm gonna marry him.
I think it was more, don't follow this guy to South America. Don't follow your boyfriend to South America. Kind of the way my parents weren't thrilled that I followed my boyfriend to New Bern.
Kind of like how I followed my boyfriend to New Bern too.
Hey, but it worked out for us.
Hey, I got an awesome husband and an amazing kid out of it. So
I was lucky. Jarek, I think, proposed within the year, so I was like, oh, thank goodness. I can at least tell my parents we have a plan for getting married.
Shelton, it was over a year.
Come on, Shelton.
It was, well, he bought the ring in like April.
Okay.
So we moved here in August.
Okay.
And then we went to India in March. And it was like pretty much right after we got back from India. So like end of March, early April. He had the day off. He walked downtown, went to the ring store. That's now a bar. Picked out the ring and he like kind of designed it, put his own personal touch to it. And then I think when they called him and said it was ready, he walked down, and I don't remember if he did this before or after, but I remember he bought I guess it was once he bought the ring, he went next door to the bar and had a beer and was like, yep, I'm doing this.
Nice.
Fast forward 6 months, 7 months on his 6 to 7 months.
7 months.
And I think I'd seen it because I think I had I'd seen the bag.
Yeah.
Like I was looking for something in his desk, and I think he knew I was looking for it. Anyway, I wasn't snooping, and I just saw like the green bag, and I was like, that's not what I'm looking for. So I just kept moving. Yeah. And it wasn't until I was like, you know what? I've decided we're engaged. You took too long to ask me, and we're engaged because I did a TV interview that morning, and I was like, I said on television that you were my fiance, because like we'd been for a while, both of us referencing each other as fiancés because, in especially smaller towns in the South, like saying, oh, I live with my boyfriend, you get some dirty looks sometimes.
It's also just easier to say.
It's easier to say, oh, my fiance, and then people are like, okay, well, yeah,
there's a level of
you're living in sin, but like
you're still
not for very much longer. Like
you have plans to make it right.
Yeah. And so I was like, yeah, no, I said, I'm not going to be a liar on TV. And Sheldon's like, wait, no, hold on. And I'm like walking back and forth in the house, just being silly and ridiculous. And I come back down the hall, and after I heard him rustling around in the study in his desk, and he's on one knee with my ring.
I've never heard that story before. I love it so much.
Really?
Yeah, I've never heard about how he proposed.
I'll tell you the full unabridged version.
Okay.
It's just like with more fun details.
Because I was gonna say, all I remember is because when I first met you guys, I thought you were married, and so when you later announced your engagement, I was like, "What? Huh? Come again?" Okay. I was like, "The married couple got engaged? That's weird." We're very extra.
Oh my gosh. We like to get remarried every couple of years.
I love that. I'm planning on doing that. Meanwhile, Jarek bought my ring the night he proposed. He was very spur of the moment.
He was ready for it.
He was ready. Like, I love it.
I've got it. I'm ready to give it to her. Because if I put it away, I'll forget where I put it.
Yes. Thank you for not doing that. I love this ring more than most things in the world. Yeah. Okay, so Julian is forced to go back to Germany, which not only did she not want to because she wanted to stay in the jungle and then also just in Peru, she then had to take an 18-hour flight. like, not long.
I was gonna ask, I'm like, did she fly or did she take a boat?
She flew. She got on that plane. So she...
I mean, talk about getting back on the horse.
Listen, she flies all the time now.
Well, yeah, I mean, statistically, plane crashes are, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what the statistics are. I don't really want to know what they are.
I don't either, because I'm going to try my hardest not to think of this next time I have to get on a plane.
It's less likely than getting in a car accident, but also you're driving a car every day. You're not
also,
flying
it's 1,000 times scarier than getting into a car accident, I think. Anyways, so she ends up studying biology at the University of...
Shocking.
I know. University of Kiel? It's in Germany. She graduates in 1980. She would later receive her doctorate from Ludwig Maximilian University of Munich. And then she returned to Peru to study bats.
Because I'm an adult dad.
Yeah.
I can live in the jungle if I want to.
And she's like, also, you're right. There isn't any cool biodiversity in Germany.
No fun wildlife there.
Terrible place for scientists.
Bats are cool.
Bats are cool. I like bats. I have a funny thing about bats that's going to come up next week. Or whenever we record again.
Oh, I have a joke for you, too.
Oh, okay. I have only 2 more points, which is that in 1998, a German filmmaker named Werner Herzog made a documentary with Juliane's help about the crash called Wings of Hope. And Werner was actually supposed to be on that flight and got not booted off, but there wasn't room, which is kind of what inspired him to do it. And then in 2011, Juliane's autobiography was released. It's called When I Fell from the Sky, How the Jungle Gave Me Back My Life. And you can actually read the whole thing on my favorite website, archive.org. So it'll be in the show notes if you want to read about the most terrifying thing that could maybe happen to a 17-year-old. But that's the story of Juliane Koepcke. Yeah. Did I say it right?
As far as I know.
Okay.
That's what I remember the pronunciation
Koepcke.
sounding
Yeah.
like.
So, yeah.
Wow. That was cool.
I know. That was one of those stories I thought about you the whole time I was doing it. I was like, this is a Katy story.
Yeah.
That's how I can justify it. I'm like, there's nothing really spooky, but it's very Katy.
I
about
just
a blonde girl who loves science.
and being outside and exploring. I can't tell you how often I fantasize about... fantasize sounds bad because it makes it sound like it's something that I want to happen. It's more... doom planning, I guess.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Because I've for years I've done this. As a kid, I think I mentioned before that my window or my bed was right under the window in my bedroom, and I'm like, okay, well, what happens if an intruder comes through this window?
Yes.
What happens if an intruder comes through the front door or the back door? And so I would kind of lay there at night and basically plan out okay, what's my plan here? Do I, do I hide? Do I try to escape? When do I fight? When do I flight?
Right.
But I also think, and more now lately, it's okay, survivor on a plane crash, desert island, lost or whatever. I'm okay, what are some of the crafts and skills that I could be doing? Okay, basic, worrying about basic survival needs. I'm not looking to be the leader of this group, but you know what I'm gonna go do? I'm gonna go gather a whole bunch of vines or leaves or whatever, and use those fibers, make some fiber art, not art, but
yeah, useful art. Yeah,
make wood frame, and then weave together a nice little bed, make a cot. All right, yep. I've got tradable skills here.
Yeah.
So it's oh, you want a comfy place to sleep while we wait for rescue? How about you give me some of the fish you caught? Even though I could also go catch fish. But,
Yeah, I like that.
I often, kind of, again, not fantasize, but daydream about, being stranded on a deserted island with other survivors. And, everyone's all freaking out and doing their thing. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go start... putting together this vine or making a twine or a rope, and then just start knitting and weaving and making various items.
I cannot say that I've ever daydreamed about that.
Oh, I do all the time. Like, I watched like a 15-minute long video, which is impressive in our day and age, about like the ancient tradition, like Chinese tradition of making paper from bamboo.
Ooh.
This is a months long process.
Dang.
And it was just fascinating. And it was also reminiscent of the time that I watched a series of videos on how to turn flax into linen, into fiber and using. And I'm like, all right, I've got a basic enough idea of like, I could make some paper and some fibers and things, and like, I could figure this out.
It's called our brains hyperfixating.
Yes. Yeah, put me in the middle of not the jungle, but the forest, like the mountains. I could handle. Because that's another thing is that like I've discovered that not discovered, but like I already kind of knew, but the soil up at our mountain cabin is very clay. Okay. Lots of clay. And so I'm like, I haven't looked into it yet, but I've like saved some websites or some resources that show how to basically, like, for lack of a better word, harvest natural clay. Like basically process the clay soil, turn it into actual clay to then make pottery. Nice. And also how to make like homemade kilns.
Nice.
So like,
love. Oh my gosh.
I am ready for the collapse of civilization.
I'll come with you because you know what? I'll entertain your kid.
There you go.
I'll build towers with him.
Yeah, you build towers and I'll provide all the things.
You do all that stuff.
I'll do all the gardening and the crafting of survival things. And
I really need to figure out what my survival skill is because
oh, you 100% want me on your zombie apocalypse survival
1,000%. Yeah, no, because I don't think I have any survival skills, but
as long as I have a steady supply of contacts, I'm good to go. Hey, because I'm also a pretty good marksman with guns.
I can help you
bow and arrow.
Put your contacts in and take them out. That is my skill. And I can scold you when you don't throw them away like you're supposed to, and then you get an ulcer. And then I can't help you.
Been there, done that. So I got a riddle for you.
Oh, okay.
All right, so it was a video that I saw, so I might have to explain it. All right. What is covered in dirt but always stays clean?
I don't know what.
Okay, so in the video, one person asks the other person, and the other person quickly responds, a corpse in a casket.
Oh.
Because it gets buried and covered in dirt. And then the other person just kind of stares and blinks for a few minutes and goes, soap. The answer is soap.
Soap.
But it made me think of you when I saw it.
Thank you. My mind immediately went to, well, the corpse actually isn't really covered in dirt. The casket's covered in dirt, so it's a technicality.
I saw that glimmer in your eye, and I'm like, she's gonna get it. She's gonna get it.
You're like, think of dead people. Yeah, no, sorry. My brain, I think, is spent today. I had a weirdly busy day at work, which normally doesn't happen. I brag about how not busy my job is. But I never want to do online returns again. I've already made a rule that the people who these uniforms are for
intentionally make them difficult so that you can't return.
I'm like, next year you guys don't get returns. I don't know. Go to the drugstore and try on all the scrubs first. I'm not letting you return them next year. This is a pain in the ass. They still have to get embroidered, and graduation isn't 15 days, and we need them done before graduation. Anyway. Thanks, everyone, for listening to my not spooky story, unsolved mystery, or local lore. I do have one of those things lined up for the next episode that Katy and I do, which may be the next one. Maybe the next one has Jarek in it. Who knows?
It'll be a fun surprise.
It'll be a fun surprise for all of us.
Yeah, because we're getting back on Sunday, so we can record then, and then Monday, Critter's getting tubes.
I won't be here Sunday. Oh, no, wait.
Next
Sunday. Yes, I will be. Okay. I was like, what's
Cinco de Mayo.
Cinco de Mayo. Yes. The day before I have a baby shower. Which I need to ask your opinion on a gift.
All right. We'll do that later.
Yeah.
All right.
If you want to see our pictures from today's episode of the beautiful German family and the Boyds, you can go to our Instagram at the Tales We Tell podcast.
Facebook
you can also
too.
Yes, that's also the same as on Facebook, the Tales We Tell podcast. If you want to see the pictures but you don't do social media, you can go to our website, thetaleswetellpodcast.com. That has all of our pictures. Shown us. I don't know what it has. Go look at it. If you want to support us, you can. One of the ways you can do that is go on Redbubble, search the Tales We Tell podcast. There you can get our logo. We have a bunch of different logos. One of them has a Lady Bigfoot. One of them has the murder cabin. There's a bunch of different things, but you can put that shit on anything. Mother's Day is coming up. It'd be a great gift for that. And if you want to support us, but you don't need the stuff except for early episodes, ad-free episodes, love notes, stickers, our undying love, the right to message us whenever you want to. You can go to Patreon and search the Tales We Tell podcast and become a patron and support our little venture. And did I miss anything?
No, you did great.
Thank you. I stumbled through it.
Shelton asked me earlier when we were going to make it big so that he could finally retire. And I was like, well, any day now, surely. But the one rule is you're not allowed to retire until you start actually listening to the podcast.
Yeah, you have to listen to some of it. And I feel like he's going to start without telling us and then just like be wildly offended by all of the mean things we've said about This is like our safe space where we can say whatever we want to about him.
I will say that I have said several nice things about him tonight.
Yes, the story you told tonight was very sweet and really makes me want to go. I don't know. Okay, we can say bye now.
Bye-bye.